Good morning and welcome to Mark Putrino's Trading Research. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, what's up, dude?
How are you today?
Eh, disgusted.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I've been watching a lot of information on it, and we've got some really crappy lawmakers in this country that really aren't human beings.
Dude, what the
Weird.
hell is this freaking Anthony Blinken? This guy can't even speak. It's like sounds like everything he says, it sounds like a question because of
Yeah,
the way he inflects his voice.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing. I mean, I don't know how the man can go on TV after he was the one that pushed this deal. I mean, he gave him the $6 billion.
He's dumb. They're all dumb. Biden's an idiot. He's an idiot. Uh, how about Pete Buttigieg? Right? It's like, gee, okay, it's the biggest transportation crisis in 100 years, and it's like, oh, he's on 3 month paternity leave. You know,
Dude, those people in East Palestine still haven't been talked about.
they're pathetic. How about I don't know if who remembers this, but obviously it was Obama who picked all these liberal people to be in their cabinet, which is the worst cabinet in history probably. And remember, like when Biden came out and he was introducing Pete Buttigieg, and he said, "Oh, him and me and Jill are good friends with him and his wife. We go out to dinner all the time." And then it's like, dude, he doesn't have a wife. He has a husband. He's gay, okay, and that's the only reason why you picked him is because he's gay. So at least you should know that. Oh, I think he said his wife's name was Karen. Like, like Buttigieg's husband's name is something similar to Karen. But it's like it's just and people just sit there and people are dumb and it's like, oh, Biden's bringing down inflation because of the strategic petroleum preserve, and now it's like, okay, well, guess what, we might need the strategic petroleum preserve and it's not going to be there.
Got
So
17 days worth left.
the day that this narrow-minded corrupt man resigns or is forced out of office will be a great day in this country's history. That's what I'm
I
saying.
think so. I think
Hello,
so.
Abby. So that's all I can say. It's like when Trump was in office, all we had to worry about was gender pronouns. Now it's like we got the world is on the verge of World War III. We got inflation. It's like, okay, but it's a he him or he she or he hey he yo. My niece is a them, whatever that means. Um,
I was born a boy. I'm probably going to die a boy. you know, I mean, it
it's
is
just
what it is. I mean, it doesn't matter how I feel today, Mark. I can't change reality.
well, elections have consequences, and and now it's like we probably have all kinds of terrorists in our country because of the stupid ass open border. Anyway, just
Well,
unbelievable.
you've got video of these young, strapping young men coming across here. You know what that does too, and what it does is right. They've taken our young youth and they've got them on TikTok and they've got them all lazy and doing hardly anything. They've got everybody believing they should be rich driving these fancy cars. And now you've allowed people that are hungry, never had nothing in their life to come across that border and start taking these jobs and actually have the American dream of what you can do when you're told you can do whatever you want to do in this country. We don't teach that to people anymore. We teach that you are privileged, you're this, you're that, you're this, you're that. Instead of if you get up in the morning, right, and you're intelligent about the way you do your life and you pay attention to a little bit of money that you got, you can go a long way. Or you can live off the government. It's that simple. You usually got two choices.
Well,
Share your screen there. There you
you
go.
know, when a lot of these immigrants are coming in and they hear, oh, it's a free country, they literally think it's a free country in terms of money, and I'm not
But
even
it is
kidding.
to them, Mark. It is to them for the first year or two that they're here. These people are getting big fat checks.
It really is just disgusting. And as someone who had two kids in the public school system, I can tell you firsthand that the the kids are suffering because the teachers have to spend all their time with these. Like in Stanford, where I live, the biggest part of the school budget is, are you ready? English as a second language. That's what I spend most of my taxes on in this town. English as a second language. Here's
That's
an idea. If you want to learn English, why don't you just go get a book or sign up for one of those, one of those classes, whatever that like English teaching software is. So this is what we have to pay for. And then people say to me, like, oh, well, your family is immigrants. Well, guess what? When my family came over here, they came over here legally. Okay. You had to have a sponsor. You couldn't just show up. Um, There was no social security, there was no welfare, there was no right to health care, there was no right to schools. So it's very, very, very different than it was when my ancestors came over here in the early 1900s and late 1800s. So I really think that's a stupid analogy. And a lot of people that came over here went back home. They didn't like it. Like half the people that came to the United States turned around and went back. It's not like they just got here and it was like this, this like Garden of Eden and everything was so great. It's just like all these stupid progressives talk about, Christopher Columbus, right? Oh, Christopher Columbus enslaved people. Well, you know why Christopher Columbus enslaved people? Because he aligned with one of the Native American tribes that was enslaving their rivals. So it's not like he invented slavery. And then at one point, the head of the tribe that he was friends with brings him out these like 10 young kids that are like between 5 and 12, and they're all really fat. And it turns out that the king wanted Christopher Columbus to bring these children home to the king of Spain so they could eat them. So not only were these people enslaving people, they were literally growing people to eat, okay? To eat. They were cannibals. But of course, we never hear about that. You don't hear Colin Kaepernick talk about that, you know? All right. Anyway.
No, you're dead right. You got all the soapbox in the world. I'm sitting free. Say what you want to say. I mean, because it's the truth. We have been led down this path of absolute self destruction by people that have sat here and told everybody that they're. I'm not going back on the privilege rant, but the whole thing is a mess. When you've got my guy up here, just say yes, Hunter Biden is the most extremely privileged person on the face of the planet, and he walks away and gets away with anything. You know what we're not talking about right now? We're not talking about Joe and Hunter Biden.
I'm talking about it.
Yeah, we are, but the world's not. The world's worried about everything else, and these two are just. And I'm still believe that Ukraine is nothing but a money laundry operation myself. And now
Well, you got to
I
wonder. If
you
it wasn't
that
for
some of these
Burisma,
weapons came from Ukraine.
if it wasn't for Burisma, maybe we wouldn't be helping Ukraine at all. I mean,
Right.
all right. Anyway, so we got the CPI number coming out. PPI was above estimates. So the CPI is, let's see what the estimates are. The CPI trade. Walgreens comes up short. All right, so let's just kind of go through some stuff here until we get to the CPI. You recall we were looking at some of these defense stocks for potential reversals. General Dynamics is one of them. Hasn't really started yet. Where are we? 239. Now, if I was thinking about taking a position on the short side of this, what I would do is I would look over the last couple days and see what price level sticks out to be important. Now, if we look at yesterday's opening price, you will notice that it's pretty much the same price as Tuesday's low price. So to me, that tells me that this particular price was important twice. That's going to be an important level. So it was, actually, let's see, the low trade on this day was 236.18, and the low trade yesterday, 236.18. Yeah, look at that. The low trade, 236.18, 2 days in a row. So now this morning we're trading up around here. And here's the thing, right? Just because something's overbought, it doesn't mean that it can't keep going higher. So this is why we tend to wait for the reversal to actually start before we jump in. You might give up a few points, but you won't get run over. So to me, the trigger or the setup is that it's overbought and we're close to resistance. The trigger would be a reversal back below this level here. And then there was also the Lockheed Martin we were looking at. Let's see what that looks like here. Yeah, see, the same thing, right? Overbought at resistance. So here, if I was going to look for a reversal or a trigger, I would say, you could see that like where this close was and this open was, like right around there. So this would be my like 434.75. If it gets below that, that's where I would consider jumping in. I'll take a look at gold here for Avi. Gold. So we're going to look at the gold futures. Let's see what's going on here. Oh, you know what worked out really well? That Domino's pizza trade we were talking about. So look at that. All right, so here's gold. We can see our fast move up, fast move down, got down pretty close to this level here of importance. So I would be looking for resistance up around here, say 1920. Um, whenever there's whenever there's like some kind of an international crisis, people buy gold, but it's like, I don't know, I mean, to me, that's kind of conspiratorial. It's like if the world is really goes to war, like who's going to care about having gold? You know, it's going to be like guns and bottled water is what's going to be worth money. But anyway, I would suspect that this will rally until we get to about 1920, and then we're going to see some resistance because support tends to turn into resistance. We can actually see that here. The level that was support here converted into resistance over here. And that's because you got these people who bought who are now underwater, assuming they held on to it, and they tell themselves, if I can sell this and get out at break even, I'm going to. So if you have enough remorseful buyers placing sell orders at the level that was support, it can turn into resistance. So I don't know if it's going to keep going up, but I would suspect that it'll at the very least pause there. So a potential strategy would be if you're long gold and we get up to around 1920. Let's see what this level is. 1917. All right, I'm going to be really precise and say if we get it around 1917, a good strategy there would be to get out. And then if it looks like the resistance is going to break and it's going to keep moving forward, then I hate having to go to work. Yeah, well, that's why they call it work, man. You're not supposed to like it. That's what my stepfather always used to say to me. It's like they call it work for a reason. You're not supposed to like it. Anyway, well, I like what I do. But all right. So anyway, because if we think about this, one of the reasons technical traders tend to have their price targets at price levels that are important. What happens when we get to a price level that's important? Usually things make some kind of a tradable move one way or the other. So just because something gets to your target doesn't mean you should go out and celebrate. Well, I guess you can go out and celebrate if you want, but it doesn't mean it's over. Something gets to your target, you get out, and then it's like keep an eye on it because it could make a move, right? If this gets up to 1920, what's it going to do? It's probably going to break the resistance and make a big move forward or reverse and make a move lower. It's pretty unlikely that it just spends a lot of time just kind of hanging out around there. When things get to these important price levels, they tend to make moves. See, like look here, we get up to resistance, we're there for 2 days. Here we get to resistance, we're there for 3 days. So just because something gets to your price target, that's great because you have a profit, but it doesn't mean that it's over. It means that like, hey, this thing might make another move, so I'm going to just kind of stick with it. People have a natural ability. I've noticed that once they close out a trade, they tend to take it off their radar screen. But you shouldn't do that because, like I said, if something gets to your target price, there's a good chance it makes a quick move. Like look at this up here for gold. So 2085. So this was the exact high in August of 20. It was the exact high in March of 22. And it was the exact high on May 2nd. And look at this. It was literally there on May 2nd for 1 day. So we got up and then wham, just reversed. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Tupperware, but let's look at GDX first here. This is so if you're thinking about going long gold, you might want to consider buying this instead because this gold miners ETF tends to move more than gold, right? It follows gold, but it moves more. So yesterday it was up 1.8%. All right, well, this morning gold it doesn't tell. Actually, we can figure it out. So yesterday gold was up 64 basis points, and this was up 1.8%. So if you're right with gold, you think it's going to go up, you're going to be better off probably buying GDX instead of buying gold itself because this is going to move more. Of course, if it goes against you, then it's going to go against you faster than gold would. But just something to keep in mind. I think it's, I mean, I know that people like to buy gold and have it in their house and everything, but I mean, I don't know. I don't really have any gold here. I wish I did. Just got some jewelry and stuff. Um, all right, so let's see what is going on with Tupperware. So what is driving this? Let's see.
That stock is crazy, man.
Walker Texas Road was doing his little workout. It's funny. He comes out of his little house and he runs around the cage and he goes back in his house and he comes out. I had another guinea pig that would work out too. They're really smart. All right, so let's see. Tupperware. All right, so it looks like someone's getting axed. CEO Richard Gudis plans to resign. So that's October 11th. So this is yesterday. But this move started on Tuesday. Let's see what Benzinga has to say. They can have an article without any misspellings in it here. Move may be fueled by retail investor interest. So I guess it's a meme stock, but a significant management change could be an important thing. And we know that this company is doing a restructuring, right? And now they're getting rid of one of the CEO. So this could be a turnaround going on here. This could be, yeah, I don't really do short term, longer term things, but longer term, this could probably be, it's a company that's not doing well. Now they're like restructuring, they're cleaning out the management. So this could be good for a long term thing. The company stock has attracted plenty of attention despite their woes. They issued a going concern warning. All right, let's go. You know what? Before we go check out Tupperware some more, notice here, though, this is our classic thing that goes on in a market that's going lower. We got our buyer's remorse, and buyer's remorse turns support into resistance. So support here, people buy, goes lower. A lot of these people say, I made a mistake. If I can get out at break even, I'm going to. So you have remorseful buyers placing sell orders, remorseful buyers placing sell orders, remorseful buyers placing sell orders. So it's like a staircase, right? Markets don't go in straight lines. They go in like a series they go in like a series of, it's like a staircase, right? A series of trading ranges. So what was support here was resistance here, and then it became resistance there. So even with all this this is when the meme crowd got involved in it. So the stock blasts off. I forget what the news was as I was driving it, but look at where it ran into resistance. Right around this level here, 550. Same level that was support here. It was resistance there. They had this big move up yesterday, and we kind of stalled out there. Of course, we're above it this morning. But I would think that this could probably, if the retail traders take this, I should say the Reddit traders, thing happens. This thing blasts off, gets, and then reverts back. But I'll look at her. Where hit IR for investment. All right. So here we are, Tupperware. We're going to go to, let's see, financial information. Now, I don't really look too much. Some insight. All right, let's see here. We go down to their numbers. right, so here are their numbers. Let's see what we can see. So this is weird. Doesn't seem very recent. This is their website. So this is the most recent thing they have. I don't have anything from 223. It's odd. All right, anyway, let me go look at this here. All right, so one of the things that we look for is trends. Is the company trending the right way? So in 2021, in this particular quarter, they earned 43 cents a share. And in 2022, in the same quarter, they lost 80 cents a share. So obviously that trend is not going the right way. But this is a little bit outdated. Another thing we want to look at with a company like this is their inventory. Because if the inventory is increasing, then that shows that they're not selling stuff. And that is on their balance sheet. So let's see if they have they don't even have inventory on here, which is very strange. Inventory is pretty much a standard thing to have on your balance sheet. So so these numbers to me, when I look at this, it gives me red flags. It looks like the reporting is delayed, but let's not forget, this is what drove the stock down back here. This was literally a penny stock. So maybe now they're getting through that and things are really kind of starting to turn around. But I just think it's odd that there's not a more up to date. Let me just see something here. Earnings release. Tupperware, August 22. All right, so let's see, Zach. So Tupperware is reporting on 11/23, earning 10 cents a share. Yeah, now this is really weird. This is really bizarre that this is not on their website. So the estimate for the first quarter was 19 cents, and they lost 43 cents. But anyway, like I said, it could be turning around. But if this thing really, if the Reddit crowd gets a hold of this thing and it gets up to around 5 or 5.5, that's where I would think about selling. So the Domino's Pizza was pointed out to us by one of our students, and this is really kind of played out just as we thought it would. Now, the reason why we started looking at this is because it was testing support right above these price levels that we gap through. And you got your kind of descending triangle formation here. All right. So the support shows us that the buyers are hanging out. The buyers are around 377, and they're just like, all right, I'm going to, like in Wall Street terminology, you could say, I'm going to make a stand. You're just going to stay at 377. You're not going to try to get a better price. You're not going to walk away. Like if I was calling up one of my brokers, I would say, look, dude, take the 377 top on, I don't know, 100,000 shares and make a stand. That tells me that's trader talk for don't screw around. A lot of times you give a broker an order and they try to get a better price and they end up missing it. And that's really one of the things that really sucks when you're a trader is you get these brokers that they don't really listen to your instructions because they think that they could do a better job. So you got to be very clear with them. Like, look, dude, don't just buy it. Don't try to get me a better price. Just buy it. But anyway, look, what does the chart show us? Let's think about this in terms of psychology. Well, you got the buyers are hanging out at support. They're not moving. They're just like, hey, whatever. The sellers, though, as time is going by, are paying or are willing to sell at lower prices. That's why the peak formed at a lower level than the prior peak. So the descending triangle pattern is a graphical illustration of passive buyers and aggressive sellers. And regardless of what market it is, whether it's the stock market or the commodities market or whatever, if you have really aggressive sellers and you got complacent buyers, it sets the stage for the price to go lower. Now, here's an example of a gap refilling. Now, why is there, when we gap, that means we close at one price, We open at another price and there's no trading in between. So on July 11th, either after the close or July 12th before the open, there was some kind of news that drove this stock up. So it closed here, it opened here. There was no trading in between. So one of the main reasons why we get support is because we have remorseful sellers trying to buy their shares back. People sell and the price goes higher, and a lot of the sellers say, I made a mistake. If I can get my shares back at the same price I bought them at, I'm going to. Now, when you gap through price levels, there's no trading. So if there's no trading, there's not going to be people who sold, who are remorseful, who are trying to buy their shares back. So when the sellers come in eventually and the support breaks, the sellers can't find any buyers. There's just not a lot of people who are willing to buy in this price range. You're going to have a tough time filling your order. Now, say you got a decent amount of shares. The stock trades 700,000 shares a day. So just say you got 50,000 shares to sell. Well, if it's up here where the market's been trading for an extended period of time, you could come in and you could probably find buyers pretty easily. But you get to something like this over here, you probably have a hard time finding buyers. You might have to sell 10,000 shares at 375, and maybe your next 10,000 shares you got to sell at 374.50, and so forth and so on. So when you hear the expression gaps refill, it's true. And this is a perfect example of it. You can also see over here another gap that refilled. Here we gapped down. We closed here and we opened up here. So one of the main reasons why we have resistance is because we have remorseful buyers who are trying to sell. People buy and then the price goes lower and they tell themselves, if this gets back up to my price, I'm going to get out. So we gap through these levels. So if you gap through the levels, guess what? It didn't trade there. There's no one who could have bought it, who is going to sell. So when whatever news comes out over here and you get these buyers coming into the market, they can't find any sellers. They had to go all the way up to here to around 351 to find people that were willing to sell. And then, of course, the stock just kind of fell right back through these price levels really quickly. So this is like we gap down and then we gap up and then we gap back down. So if you look at this chart, you can see there are just some price levels this particular stock likes and some that it doesn't. Now, over here, this is not an uncommon thing to see where something sells off and it looks like it's going to break support, but then after a few days, it comes back and holds above it. That's because selling is caused by fear. People sell because they're afraid. People buy because they're hopeful. They sell because they're afraid. So when you're afraid, you get aggressive selling, and sometimes you can get right through the support, and then we come back up. So bottoms tend to be more volatile than tops, and that's because bottoms are a result of selling. Like look at how aggressive. Look at the volatility at this bottom over here. And then look at the top. See, the top is much more mellow than the bottom, generally. And then we could even see here our example of what was support over here becomes resistance over here. So just say you bought this down here and it's moving higher and you're wondering, where should I sell? What should my price target be? Well, someone might say, you know what? I bought it at 330. If it gets to 400, I'm going to sell it. All right. That's kind of a common thing. People say, all right, I bought it here. I'm going to sell it here. Now, the person who says I'm going to sell it at 400, they're just guessing that it's going to get to 400. The person who looks at the market and says, you know what? There was support around 390. That means there's a good chance there's going to be resistance around 390. So instead of selling it at 400, I'm going to sell around 390. And in this situation, guess what? You didn't miss it. The person who wanted to sell at 400 was just guessing, and they would have missed it. The person who let the market tell them what to do would have sold it at 390. Can we look at Boeing? Indeed, we can.
This thing's been a bloodbath.
Yeah, now look at this. So this is kind of an interesting here as well, right? We talk about our price levels. So we got support, and then we broke down through it, and we reversed. And now where did we run into resistance? Right at the level that was support. So you see down back here. So this is 197. So I would be watching 197, and I would be thinking, all right, if this gets above that, like if I was thinking about buying this, I would wait for the resistance to break because there's a chance it just reverses and goes lower. I would probably get interested if this thing surpassed 200, because you know that there's going to be some kind of resistance at 200 because people like nice round levels. But if we get above that, then it looks like there's some pretty decent upside. I would think that the next stop would probably be up around here. What was support could become resistance over here, just like support here became resistance here. But it's interesting that see how it's just kind of pinned right at this level. So yesterday closed at 196.07. It's at 196.75. And if we go back here, oh, I'm just wondering what that sound is. And it's my wife's hair dryer. Okay. Yeah, she's got to go into her office today. All right. So look, so support here became resistance here. Resistance here became support here. Support down here became support here. I mean, you could look at pretty much any stock and you'll see that there's these important price levels. But I would be thinking, all right, if I was going to buy Boeing, I would wait for it to clear this resistance, because this resistance could put a ceiling on it, like it did yesterday. And what happens is you got people that want to sell. That's what resistance is. It's a large amount of people that want to sell. So when some of these sellers start to look around and notice, hey, the stock is not moving any higher, that means there's other sellers coming into the market. I better reduce the price I'm willing to sell at. And people start undercutting each other, and then you get the sell off of resistance. So a lot of times when you get to resistance level, like here, you get the sell off that follows.
4.3 down 0.0 or 0.4.
I think that's higher than estimates. Let's see here. I mean, the market continues to move ahead. I have to say, I'm pretty surprised, but I mean, I'm not going to complain. But so this tells me that interest rates must be coming down a little bit. So the CPI came out, and let's see what the estimates were. So consumer prices rose more than expected. So it came in 0.4, estimates were 0.3. Core CPI is unchanged. All right, well, we're going to have to just give the market a little bit of time to, I guess, digest this and see what happens. All right, so where was I? All right, so SPY. Yeah, I mean, now for me, next target would be here. You see this low?
She's absolutely killed it in Lily, man. And what was it? SMCI, Heather?
Lily. Wow, look at that. This is our fat drugs. This is really changing everything, man. They're saying like a lot of these weight loss companies like Nutrisystem and Weight Watchers, they're all having like a hard time now. All right, so anyway, I think it's kind of just might be a little bit of a short-term top around here. We're right around 600. See where we had a little top there. So that's what I would be watching. How does this handle 600? It's going to be overbought. And let's see what Adobe looks like. All right, and here's Adobe. I haven't looked at this one in a while, but you can see these. I don't remember the last time, but here, I mean, this isn't, it's not rocket science. There tends to be resistance at former peaks, but this could be the situation. Like, say you're long here, legislation is being introduced for Medicare coverage. Wow, so these things are going to probably continue to move higher if that's the case. I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, the country's biggest problem, like one of the biggest problems, is obesity. So why wouldn't Medicare pay for this? It's like, how many people die because they're fat?
You know what, though? There's a lot of research grants and money given out to people in these hospitals to study the effects of obesity on people, and you're just a test subject anyway, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, it's I got this video of this Grateful Dead concert from it's either 1972 or 1973, and it's really hot. It's in August, and you could just see the humidity, and so every guy in the crowd has his shirt off, and half the women have their shirts off, and you do not. And there's, I don't know, 100,000 people there. You do not see a single person in the crowd who is overweight. Not a single person. Now, I'm not preaching because I'm overweight. You know what I'm saying? But it's really weird. If you saw a video of a rock concert now, like you wouldn't see anyone who was that skinny. So, what has happened in the last 50 years? And microwaves, processed food, lifestyle. I think now
Preserving.
your typical person I saw consumes about 500 more calories a day than people did 50 years ago. And 500 calories a day, a calorie is 3,000, or a pound is 3,000 calories. So every 6 days, that's an extra pound versus what a person would have had back then. But yeah, I guess it's just kind of a cultural thing. And what's really sad too, I mean, I'm overweight, but I'm overweight because I like to eat and drink. I mean, you know,
Hey, be honest. That's the whole key, is being honest.
but when sometimes you see these little kids like 2, 3 years old, and they're like so heavy, and then you see their parents are giving them like candy, and I got a niece who is really overweight, and her mother's really overweight, and it's she's a good mother and everything, but she just, like, we go over to their house and you open up the cabinet and it's all it is like candy, Twinkies and cupcakes, you know.
That's probably the way she was raised. It's what makes them feel good. A lot of people do it to feel good. I used to eat to feel good until I got diabetes, and now you don't get to feel good anymore. And right, people are more sedentary too. They don't
Yeah,
really do it.
yeah, everyone's on their damn phones.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, like after school, man, it was just like all the kids in the neighborhood, we'd play football or just do something. Yeah,
Yeah.
so this is why the market's moving up a little bit here, because our yields are down a little bit. So this is going to be critical to watch here. Already people are starting to say that because the yields have moved up, the Fed doesn't need to keep raising. Yields are going to go. Someone I saw on TV this morning said yields are going to go down to 3.5% by next year. I mean, I don't know if that's the case, but I do know that by watching this, you're going to get some direction into what's going to happen in the stock market. So I think we're at a period now where interest rates are really kind of important. And it is, for me, it's kind of new territory, because in the last, since the early 80s, we haven't really dealt with this inflation like we are now. And I was too young to remember what was going on back then, but this is going to be the key to watch here. Sometimes markets are hard to figure out, and sometimes they're relatively easy. And I think that you could say that this is going to be an easy market, because so much of it is just going to come out of what happens over here. So if this keeps going down, stocks are going to keep going up. If we get down to around 4%, then there's a good chance we reverse. Because remember, this is the yield here, but people don't trade the yield. People trade the bond. The chart of the bond is the inverse. So we invert the scale. What do we have? A level that was support here became resistance over here. A level that was support here and here, there's a good chance it becomes resistance here. So if the bonds keep rallying and we get up to around here where the yield is around 4.35, at that point, there's a good chance we get another wave of selling in the bond market. And that's going to probably push stocks. All right, let me see if I got this right. So we get a wave of selling in the bond market. That's going to push yields higher, and that's going to push the stock market lower. Probably. I got to always say probably, because nothing is ever a guarantee. But this is an important thing to watch here. But as long as, right now, the short-term trend is down, but I don't know, man. There's so much that could go spiraling out of control in the world right now, between what's going on in Israel and what's going on in Ukraine. And, pretty soon they're going to start pushing Biden out the door, and that's, damn, Kamala Harris is probably going to be better than him. I mean, at least she'll just be there. He's like actively destroying things. She probably,
this what's his name, Kennedy switching to independent is going to make a big deal for the Democrats.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that pretty much assures that Biden is done. But
Yeah,
hey, it's like you don't want to let the guy debate you. It just shows you, well, this is the stupidity of Joe Biden. It's like every decision he makes is wrong. So he probably said, listen, I'm not going to debate the guy. We don't want him in there. Now, guess what he's doing? He's going to go start a third party, and that's going to pull votes from you. So, so Biden is actively destructive. Kamala Harris will probably just sit there and do nothing. So it's almost like she would even be better than him.
I think he's going to try to burn it down on his way out the door.
Well, that's the thing, and that just shows you what a disgraceful person he is, because he knew. I've had this discussion with my brother a lot. My brother's a very savvy, smart person. He's a lot smarter than I am. Went to Yale and graduated. I think he was like the number 2 person in his class when he graduated. But anyway, Biden could have just retired and gone off into the sunset and enjoyed all his illegal tens of millions of dollars, and that would have been it. But he said to himself, you know what? I've been in office for 50 years. I've been a senator. It's my turn to be president. I know I got all this garbage in my past that could come out. I know it could tear the country apart, but I don't care. It's my turn to be president. I'm going to be president just so I can have some power. He's got no core beliefs. His only desire is to have power. That's it. And people don't call him out on so much crap that's so obvious. Like when he was saying after 9/11 that he was there the day after looking at the towers, when we know he wasn't there. That's a documented fact that he was not there. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Then he's on one of those Sunday talk shows a few weeks ago, and he's saying, when I was in high school, I was with my dad, and my dad said, Joey, you see those 2 gay men? There was like a gay couple. It's all about love. All that matters is that they love each other. So Biden was like, so I had this epiphany that we should have gay marriage should be legal when I was in high school. All right. So then how come for 50 years when you were a senator, you voted against it? You know what I mean?
Once did he mention gay marriage.
It's like for 50 years he was against it.
He kept that in. It was such a strong thing for him. He kept that in for 50 years. That's amazing. Somebody that much, what do they call that? Intestinal fortitude to be able to hold something like that in for so long.
And he says Obama is the first clean African American in politics. Can you imagine if Trump said that? They would have impeached him another time,
It's just all a joke. And
well, it's not just funny. I mean,
we're the joke's on us.
The Trump derangement syndrome has literally led to war and famine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if I don't care what you say, you like Donald Trump or not, when the dude was in office, the world was at peace. At least our world was. We had
money in our pockets. Every single American was so much better off than we are right now.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, I just want to take a look at Apple here because this is so between interest rates. That'll be important to watch. And let's also watch this Apple because see how we've gotten to this clear short-term resistance level. So what happens when things get to important price levels? They break one way or the other. So if interest rates continue to move lower and it looks like we're going to break this resistance here, then that'll give us a little bit of a catalyst for some upside in the market here. And we got our notice how this is like the opposite of Domino's Pizza, where we were at support above a gap. Here we're at resistance below a gap. So if this 180 level starts to get taken out, this thing could shoot up to 183 pretty quickly. So that's something to keep an eye on there too. We got our banks start reporting tomorrow. So we want to keep an eye on our banking industry. And this looks pretty flat this morning, but this will be something that's important to watch as well. Probably going to be some resistance around 38 because as we can see, 38 was an important price level. It was resistance back here. Then it turned into support. And now there's a change in resistance. So I would say between interest rates and the banks, like if I was in a role and I get an insight into the way the market was going to move, those would probably be the 3 things that I would be watching. Sometimes the market changes. Different things are in the driver's seat at different times. Sometimes it's easy to kind of decipher, and sometimes it's not. Like, look at this here. So this is our financial sector. Look how important this price level is here, 33.60. Yesterday's high trade was 33.53. So this could put a little bit of a top on the market here as well. But I don't want to get people confused. I would say, watch Apple, watch interest rates, and then I guess just watch what goes on with the banks. And I think that's so this is flat. All right, let's see what goes on in the news here before I get going. Hamas assault rewrites rules of the Middle East. Yeah, these people they're just sick people, man. Sick people. Reminds me of 9/11. I mean, I was in Manhattan during 9/11. And I used to trade a lot with Cantor Fitzgerald and KBW, so I knew a lot of people that were in those trade centers that day. Microsoft. All right, let's look at Microsoft. Do you know Cantor Fitzgerald? There was never a Fitzgerald. They put the name on Fitzgerald because they didn't want the firm to sound too Jewish. So there was a Cantor, but there was never a Fitzgerald. So there's a little trivia for you there. All right, so now we got Microsoft, and Microsoft is like pretty much interesting. So Microsoft is actually down fairly. Microsoft down following IRS notice to pay $29 billion in additional taxes. That's a lot, not that much. For 13, pay $29 billion in additional tax. Well, you know what makes me ask the question: how much cash does Microsoft have on their balance sheet? And I would guess it's going to be way more than that.
This has got to be just interest from 2013 to 14. That's a lot of interest.
Yeah, it's freaking high. I'm all for tax. I mean, just make it easy.
I think the fair tax is the way to go, man. Make everybody pay at the cash register. That way you kill the black market, the whole 9 yards.
Wow, look at that. That's yeah. I don't know what this has to do with, but that certainly looks nice.
Your signal's going in and out, Mark. Go ahead. You're good now.
Okay. Income statements. Actually, no, we want to look at the balance sheet. Yeah, it's a pretty friggin' complicated website here. All right, so cash and cash equivalents. So they have, I guess they have $34 billion in cash. So that actually
is handle it. That ain't even a sneeze.
Yeah. But anyway, so this stock is going to be at this 330 level. Interesting though, because if this wasn't down, if this just say this was flat, then the market would be up pretty meaningfully. Not huge, but or anything like that. But let's see here. Yeah, so the S&P is up. If it wasn't for Microsoft being down, this would probably be up to around this level here, which I suspect we're going to see some kind of resistance at. So up here, because this was the former bottom. So just go back to this day here. Market falls apart. People are buying on the close, and they're like, oh man, Microsoft's down almost 1% today, down $4. I'm going to buy. But then the next day it gaps lower. So now you got people who bought here who are going to be saying, you know what? I want to get out at break even if I can. So there's a good chance that if we get back up to here, there's going to be some resistance there. Remember, we tend to get resistance at former bottoms and at former tops. Markets are about what was the top and what was the bottom, peaks and valleys. Markets go in peaks and valleys. So we can see here, this peak here was lower than this one. This peak here was lower than this one. That was a sign that this move lower was coming. But anyway, I would suspect we're going to see some support, right? I mean, sorry, resistance right there. All right, everyone. I guess that's it. If anyone has any questions, and if not, I will see you all tomorrow morning.
Have a wonderful day, guys. We'll be back same time, same bat station.